Huh. Lighting isn't great, and I'm guessing there's a lot of fuzzing in the background, isn't there? With, I'll tell you what. Let's fix that. Ah, much better. Right, let's get right to the video, because boy, it has been a while, hasn't it? First off, I wanted to take this moment to actually thank everyone who's been waiting patiently for this video, because it's been taking much longer than anticipated. So with that out of the way, let's get right to it. If you're an old school anime fan like myself, then you've probably heard of the little gem known as Lupin the Third. Written and created by the late great Kazuhiko Katuo, aka Monkey Punch. It follows the story of Lupin the Third, the world's greatest thief, who just so happens to be the grandson of Arsenal Lupin. You know, this guy. Just in case you wanted to educate yourselves. Along his travels, he's usually joined by his right-hand man Daisuke Jigen, an expert marksman, Goemon Ishikawa, a master swordsman, and Fujiko Mine, a mysterious woman who sometimes joins them or exploits the hell out of them to steal for herself. She also provides as the love interest of Lupin, for better or worse. And of course, tailing behind them is Inspector Zenigata, who has made it his life's goal to catch Lupin and his gang by almost any means necessary, depending on which version you watch. Now, I could go on, and believe me I could, about the history of the series, specials and movies, but no. Today we'll be looking at the only Lupin game that was dubbed into English, Treasure of the Sorcerer King for the PlayStation 2, and as mentioned a few seconds ago, this game was released in English, but only in the USA and not the UK. You know, I would say something rude or smart at this point, but instead I'm just going to leave this very convenient picture of TomatoGhost flipping you off. Thanks, Tom.
Oh, don't worry about it.
Ah! The story itself is very true to the source material, as it's very Lupin and over the top at times. Just how we love it. We follow our favourite thief trying to steal a pair of antique pictures that look like this and is spelt like this, by the way, which apparently show the way to the legendary treasure of King Randolph II, better known as the Sorcerer King. Huh, did an accidental title drop. The pictures are being presented for a charitable event run by the game's villain Theodore Hanwald at his ancestral castle in Golden Gate. And if his name doesn't scream bad guy for you, then his design and voice will certainly get you to believe that he's a bit of a dick. Joining in on this wild ride is Teresa, who is the owner of the pictures and is not only the centre of the game, but also pretty much a copy and paste of Lady Clarice from this movie. To some degree anyway. So it's up to Lupin and his gang not only to stop the villain's plot, but also find the treasure of the Sorcerer King. Oh, and Fujiko is here too, but only for eye candy. What do I mean by this? Well, you play primary as Lupin throughout the game, while in 2 levels you play as Jigen and Goemon, while Fujiko is left to the side, and I'll explain why in a minute. As for Zenigata, he's pretty much just an obstacle for the player to outsmart and sneak about in order to progress, but also providing his comedic charm like he always does. Graphic-wise, it ain't that bad to be honest, but I'd be lying if I didn't admit saying that you can tell it's a PlayStation 2 title. It doesn't hurt the gameplay in the long run, but you do get used to it over time. But there are some character models, like the background characters, that don't look right at times, and some of the backgrounds that stick out like a sore thumb. Main character design, however, are on point, as everyone looks like they do from the television series, and even using the same voice actors from the said show. However, in some cutscenes you can tell that they're a little stiff at times. The gameplay is pretty simple and easy to understand, as it's a stealth action game. Kind of like Metal Gear, but without the complicated plot, the ridiculous and overpowered characters, and boobs shoved in your face. Oh wait, it does have 2 of those. As Lupin, you can go around different locations disguising yourself as a policeman, a random tourist, and even Zenigata himself. These are mainly used to sneak in and out of places without raising suspicion, even though Zenigata's men can recognise Lupin however he looks, which in hindsight isn't a bad game design if you ask me. Weapon-wise, he has his trusty Walter P38, a tranq gun to get out of sticky situations, and a frying pan because of course he has one of those. As mentioned earlier, you do get to play as either Jigen or Goemon in 2 different levels, and while the levels are pretty much the same throughout, you do get attacked by certain mercenaries. Only if you pick Jigen, it's revealed that he knows who they are, as they used to fight together or something like that, and don't worry about looking it up, as it's never really explained. Gameplay wise for these 2, not a whole lot of difference apart from one uses a gun and the other uses a sword. Now on to Fujiko, and okay, look, you don't get to play as Fujiko at all, aside from playing her in a form of a minigame beat-em-up. And that's it. Kind of pointless to have her in the game really, but we all know why she's in it. Aside from all that, the rest of the gameplay is pretty much the same. Start somewhere, sneak in, disguise yourself, learn new info, collect clues and try not to get caught. There is the occasional puzzle solving, and while some of them did kind of remind me of playing games like Grim Fandango, the others are pretty much easy to solve. There are a few that requires you to backtrack sometimes, and it does get a bit tedious very quickly. There are some gunfighting, and it can get a little jarring as you mainly play in a third-person perspective, but when you pull your gun out to fight, you quickly switch to first-person perspective. It isn't the worst switch up, but it did take me a while to get used to it. I will say the controls are a little clunky, and the AI as well, yeah, they're pretty easy to get past and knock out. Kind of killing the whole stealth section if you ask me. Actually, going back a few minutes, remember when I said Teresa was a copy and paste of Lady Clarice? Well, it turns out I'm not far off, as, yeah, you can pretty much see the similarities. As you progress through the game, you learn a little bit more of Theodore's plan to use the Sorcerer King's power, and then all hell breaks loose. I won't spoil the rest of it, as, to be honest, despite the few problems the game has, like its controls, the AI, graphics, and some easy puzzle solving, the rest of it is just brilliant and well worth to play. From its character design, the story,
Good point,
voice acting, soundtrack, and just how faithful it is to the series. Oh, speaking of the soundtrack, once again the music is provided by longtime composer Yuji Ono, who once again brings us the jazzy tunes which are literally all over the series, and if you haven't heard his music before, I highly recommend it. Sadly, I won't be able to showcase any of the music on here due to copyright, but you can find the music all over YouTube. One other thing I'd like to mention is that I don't understand why this game was never released in the UK, as it was released in Japan of course, the United States, and Italy. I did try to find out more information about this game, but sadly there was no information to be found. So for any fans out there living in Europe, the only way you can play this game is to either get the Italian version or get a chip PS2 console that allows you to play multi-region games. Which is what I had to do. With that out of the way, all that's left is for me to say that this is a must-have for Lupin the Third fans. Despite all the flaws I mentioned, this game is very fun to play and entertaining to boot. I honestly wish more Lupin games got released overseas, as there are some pretty good ones out there and even some hidden gems too. And if you're curious as to maybe start looking for these games, you can find them all on eBay, but just be aware that some of them might be a little pricey here and there. Right, I'm going to end the video a little differently here by saying once again thank you so much to everyone who has waited patiently for this video to come out, and a massive thank you to everyone who has subscribed so far, 400 plus. That is a massive milestone for me. Also, I'd like to give a big massive thank you for TomatoGhost for cameoing in this video, because he's been a massive inspiration for this video, because he's also a fellow Lupin fan. So, until next time guys, sweet dreams.
Don't you dare sit there thinking, well, if it's unavailable, then how's he got a copy of this? I have my methods. And this. And this. Now let me show you my very authentic UK copy of Lupin the Third, the First. I long for death.